Okay.
Okay.
I'm thinking slow today. Okay. Hi, Boomy. I'm
Hi.
so glad to be talking to you about this new summer class. You know, you and I have been talking about doing a writing class for at least a year or year
At
and
least
a
a
half.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, y'all, Boomy does our book club and for world history. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but this is why we're always talking about books.
Yes. So, hi, woke homeschoolers. I am Boomy, and I have known Alina for a while. I don't even know, I can't remember when we met, but one of the things that we bonded over was our love of books. I read a lot, but I also work in publishing full time. And so, um, creative writing, publishing, all those things are things that like appeal to me. I specifically work in children's books, which is how I also got connected with the book clubs, just because I read a lot within that space. And there was so much good historical fiction that I was like, oh yeah, like when she had the idea for pairing the world history class with the books, it just made sense, and it was a fun
And she
project for me.
picks the best
Well, thank you.
books. I think there's only one book that you suggested that I don't like.
You think it's boring, but all the kids have shown up to
The
book
kids
club,
like
all like
it.
it.
Yeah,
They are
yeah.
all
So,
like, it was worth, they
okay,
liked it.
I'm
Yeah.
outnumbered. I'm outnumbered.
Uh, so yeah, I'm excited to like now do this creative writing class. I think writing is a great way to express yourself, even if you don't plan to be published. It's just and the stories, you know, what's fun about books, like the reason why we even do the book club with the world history classes, being able to read about someone's experience offers you a window into a new life, into a new world. If you relate to that, it's a mirror, a chance for you to feel affirmed or just validated in your experiences. And so I think, you know, being able to like write about your own experiences is a way to also do the same thing, to offer maybe your classmates or your friends or whoever reads your work a window into your life or into the things that you think about and feel, or it's a chance for you to validate and process and just kind of express yourself freely without any worries. So
So that's a little glimpse about the class. Tell me more about this creative writing class. Like
yeah, so
you you titled it some I should know this. Something about identity.
yeah,
that's where I'm going.
I focused on identity and like personal storytelling, like really understanding your own identity to tell your own stories. And one of the reasons why I thought about this is when I was in middle school and in high school, I wanted to be a writer. I imagined writing books and getting published and telling stories, and I really struggled to actually get a story down. All of my characters were white. They had horses and lived in mansions and did all these things that looked nothing like my life. And the reason for that was because that's what I was reading. Almost every book that I grew up reading was very different than the life I actually lived. You know, Anna Green Gables, Heidi, Little Woman. I mean, and then those are even historical ones. But if I even get into contemporary, every book I got from the library oftentimes was a white character living a very different life, having playing polo. What is polo? Going to summer camp for entire 6 weeks. I was like, I get to go for one, maybe if I'm lucky, you know, like it was just very different. And so I was trying to mimic what I was reading because that's how you oftentimes learn how to write is through reading. And it just never felt authentic enough. I never felt connected enough that I never actually finished a single story that I've ever written. And it was just one of those things where it felt like maybe this isn't for me. And
Wow.
then, I mean, just going through college, I remember being in my senior year of college and I read Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Adichie. And I remember having this moment of recognition. And it was the first time I felt that level of recognition of just being like, this is like my story. This is how you would describe what it's like to grow up in Nigeria or to eat this kind of food or to like have your parents speak to you with this type of language or with that type of inflection. And I just felt seen. And the story is very different from my life, but there was enough of these elements where I just saw my own life reflected. And it made me feel like, oh, so this is possible. It is possible to write about my experiences and it be real. Since I've been in publishing, I have noticed that like diversity has definitely improved as far as what you see on the shelves, but there's still space for more stories. And there's still sometimes a monolith of what is even published when it comes to certain races or gender identities. And, you know, ideally we're seeing more and more, but it takes obviously, you know, writers being willing to kind of write about their experiences and dive into their identity in order to do that. I think like a traditional creative writing class, if you were to take a workshop or even go for your MFA, oftentimes is focused on you mimicking the experts, mimicking the masters. And if you look at those curriculum lists, almost every single master is dead white dudes, you know, maybe they throw in a Jane Austen, but like I remember my creative writing class in college, we had to read Hemingway, like the entire like book collection was Hemingway's works. And I was just like, but this is like so painful, you know, like nothing about it was
And then
appealing to
you're
me.
told the harder this is, the more painful it is, the better.
And you know, his writing is perfect, and you're like, but is it? And as I've been in publishing longer, one of the things I've realized is there's not really one right way to. There isn't one right way to write.
You
Actually,
said one white way.
I said one right way. I meant to say right way, but also there's not the white. The white way is not the only way to write. And I think that you know, we hold up this you know, form of writing that oftentimes comes from a white Western perspective in order to say, like, this is the way to write. And if you don't write this way, then it's not good writing. But storytelling has existed since the beginning of time in every culture, in every place. Every one of you can think of the stories your families have passed down to you, or the stories you tell yourself, the stories that you make up on the fly when you're just hanging out with your friends and chatting. And there's not a right way to tell those stories. Those stories ultimately come out based on the way that your culture has ingrained you into thinking about what is normative. And so when I'm, you know, something that might make sense to you, as far as I remember we were talking about even like foreign language once, and you're just like, okay, it's really important for me to see this italicized or to be this to be read this way because my brain will think this. And I was like, oh, my brain wouldn't have thought that at all. And it's because we have different things that are at the baseline of our identities, and that filters the way we read, and it also filters the way we write. So my goal with this class is to remind us that there's no one way to write, but also really tapping into what feels true to you when you think about, you know, the stories that you carry with you and the stories that you want to share with the world. How do you bring that together? And it's not like we're not going to read other people's writing, but we're reading it with the lens of trying to understand, like, what resonates with me here? What do I connect with? What do I not connect with? And really think about the whys, so that when we're applying to our own writing, we're not just copying and saying that this is the way to do it. We're actually like processing what makes sense for you yourself and as a writer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to take the class.
You're welcome to. You can sit in.
So what sorts of activities do you anticipate doing with the class?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, good writers are often good readers. And so a lot of what I will be asking is students to read either a short story or a collection of short stories at home, and just kind of processing, like I said, what do I like? What do I not like? There's times that if we're talking about plot or character, that I might ask them to focus very specifically on that element. And then we come back to the class, just kind of discussing what we noticed. And then, of course, we're going to be writing. And so whether that is writing in the moment on Zoom, where we were kind of having that dedicated time so that you'd have no excuses but to get something on paper, or it is like writing a little bit of a short something at home after you've done some of the reading. The goal is to really get you writing. And so there will definitely be regular prompts and regular pushes to write. We're going to start out with reading as a way to kind of give us a picture of what we're talking about, so that you kind of have a jumping off point to then create something of your own.
I know you've already chosen the best examples. I don't
Some
even
of them
have
are behind me.
Yes,
So
that's awesome. Okay, so what you talked about, they're going to be writing a lot. So what's a typical workload? Because folks are like, look, this is summer.
yeah,
What are we doing? But you know what? Summer also gives you the chance to have more time to write.
yes,
So
I agree.
what's the balance there? Yeah.
I think the workload really will depend on you, to be honest. Writing is something that you can't really force, but you also need to do consistently to get better at it. So if you choose to only write once a week, that's on you, but you probably won't necessarily grow as much in your writing than if you were to say, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes a day just playing around and writing this and doing that. I mean, I think with the reading assignments, depending on how fast you read, I really don't think it would take you more than a few hours maximum a week. Because a short story, I mean,
Mhm.
5-ish pages could probably be read in 30 minutes or so. But it really will depend on you and just kind of how much you want to work, to be honest. Um, you could choose to write every day and try the prompt out in multiple ways if you want to, or you can just do it once and just kind of be okay with that. And I think the real work just happens by doing the writing, and I'm not going to say expect like you need to have this done by this time, as much as I just really want to encourage you to get pen to paper over and over again. And I'm saying pen to paper because I do actually want the students to write with pen and paper or pencil and paper, just because I want to make sure that they're like
That
freeing
Chat
themselves.
GBT didn't do it.
Well, no, I'm not. I mean, hopefully you're not using ChatGPT, because just FYI, it won't be copyrighted if you do. um, but I think it's more that there's that connection that you have where you're not distracted by the internet. You're also not tempted to backspace and erase. You just are allowing yourself to write the first thing that comes to your mind. And ideally, that should free you to really be as authentic as possible and not worry so much about, like, did I get the right word? Let me look up, use the Word document thing to figure out a good synonym for this. Like, nope, don't worry about that. I don't even care if it's good. What you write, you don't even have to think what you write is good, because most first drafts are horrible anyway. Don't worry about it. Like, it's the goal is just really to get pen to paper and really get words out. And sometimes when we're typing, it's so easy to
Edit yourself.
overthink, to
Mhm.
edit, to decide like, ooh, maybe I should actually just Google really quickly this one bit of information. Nope, don't want any of that. I just want you to write.
That's awesome. That I'm gonna take the class, y'all. So what if you miss a class? Because some people have summer camps. This is an 8-week class. We have a week-long break in the middle of those 4 weeks. Um, but there's camps here and there, and people have funny schedules in the summer. So what if they miss a class or two?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, again, the goal is to write. There's not any grades or assignments here that you're going to end up failing if you don't have the class completed. Every bit of like all the readings and like any of the prompts I have will be uploaded to the portal. So you could always do it on your own time. I think the only thing you'll be missing by not coming to the live class is that interaction, being able to discuss the writing with the rest of the class, being able to ask questions if you have questions, getting a chance to even workshop your work and like maybe read a little bit out loud and get immediate feedback from people. But you can write without me, like, like
Yeah.
writing actually is kind of a solitary like action, even though the end result becomes a shared and communal thing. The actual work of writing is something you have to do alone anyway. And so it's fine if you are just reading the stories in the portal and doing some writing. As long as you're writing, I'm happy. So if at the end of the summer you're like, I wrote a lot, that would be like a win for me, even if you only showed up one time. So
Yeah, yeah. And I can't wait to hear back on, the types of stories that kids come up with, and the ways that they find their identity and their voice through their writing. It's gonna be awesome. Y'all have to sign up. wokeschoolonline.com. The class is $200, and it's for 8 weeks. We meet for how long are we meeting to do all this?
we will meet live about 50 minutes. And
50
so
minutes.
probably like a 10-15 minute presentation from me at some point. But really, again, like I want us to either spend time writing together or even spend time reading and talking about our writing together. So
Yes. Yes. So that's once a week. It's on Mondays. All the details are on the website. But I just wanted y'all to get a chance to hear Boomy, hear her plans, her dreams for this class. I think it's going to be awesome. And some of y'all have kids that are awesome writers. So definitely think about signing up. Registration ends May 30th.